From Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana, this is The Grouch and the Brainstorm. Welcome back to The Grouch and the Brainstorm, episode 21. And I'm Mike, and I'm here today with Matt.
Hey, guys.
Ben.
What's up?
And Jill.
Hello.
And we are going to entertain you for the next 1 hour or inform you or... Hell, I don't know. We're just going to
entertain.
Hopefully entertain. We're just going to talk. You know, one of the things I like about podcasts and all these things you see on YouTube, someone had developed a word, I guess, many years ago or something that I just missed. Content. You know, what are you going to call the stuff we put? Content. Is that like the easiest?
Kind of a blanket.
It's kind of easy. I produce content. Yeah.
Nice.
I produce bullshit.
Yeah,
there you
we
go.
should meet.
Yeah, exactly.
So, oh man. So we have talked on the last couple episodes about willingness. We've talked about selfishness. We've talked about a lot of those things that we need, things that get in the way, things that we just struggle with, I guess you should say, or don't struggle with and need. But tonight we're going to talk about step 6, which stated by the big book is we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And so around the room real quick, does anybody have any defects of character?
I don't.
Absolutely. Come on.
Matt, you don't have any?
10, 20,000, that's about it.
Well, you know.
What's a defect?
Yeah. Well, that's
content.
Glad you said it's content. I'm glad you said that, Ben, because that's where we're going with this, right? We're going to talk about the defects of character. Well, we're going to talk about part of that is being the defects of character and realizing what they were and how we came to realize what they were. And we've already done it. We already know this information. We did it when we took an inventory and when we covered that inventory with another person. You know, I guess it's just really, the step is very simple. So on my way out here this morning, I was listening to Joe and Charlie. You know what I'm talking about? Joe and Charlie? You're right?
Yes.
Okay. Ben, Joe and Charlie? Okay, there are a couple of fellas that did a big book study on tape, and it's really popular in the AA or in the recovery community, and it's humorous. It's almost like a advanced form of what we're doing, except for
You said on tape. What's that?
it's things we had in the 80s. You know, they still call albums.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so and so's putting out a new album. You know, and I'm like, album? Nobody's had an album. Anyway, before I get off track, I was listening to Joe and Charlie on the way over this morning, and I specifically fast forwarded it to this step 6. And, you know, they say very little. Matter of fact, they do step 6 and 7 at the same time. And, you know, my current sponsor, has always made it very clear to me and anyone that he comes in contact with that these are 2 entirely separate steps, right? So I'm gonna do some reading. Got to do a little reading because I want to get us to up to par, right? And you know, step 5 is talking about pocketing our pride, illuminating every nook and cranny, going to the deep, talking about our story, telling everything we can to someone that's closed-mouthed and trusted and can listen and maybe even give a little feedback, positive and negative feedback. And then after it talks about that in the big book, there's this paragraph, right? Just one big paragraph, and I'm gonna read through it. It says, returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. That's actually hard to do, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Carefully reviewing what we have done, we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know Him better. Taking this book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have omitted anything. For we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness, and this right here is step 6 in the big book, just total thing. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all these things which we have admitted are objectionable? See, it doesn't mention the word defect in there. It just says objectionable, right?
Yeah.
Can we now take them all? Can he now take them all? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us be willing. And that's pretty much step 6. So has everyone in here done a step 6?
Yes.
Yes.
Recently?
No.
Well,
No. Yeah.
well, shame on you for not working a good program. No, I'm just messing with you. I think that, step 6 is one of those things that I don't want to discourage any newcomer, but once we get off into the thing, step 6 is one of those things that we do every day, and we just may not realize it. I do it every day and just don't realize it, And it's almost, I find it in reverse order when I take a step 10.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say too, is you do it every day. You do it every day, but, it's kind of a reverse step 10. That's exactly. And I was just in a thing on 10 last night, and,
How'd that go? How did 10 go last night?
it was good. It was good. And that is definitely one you do every day, but you don't realize the step 6 is it ties into that. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but, I think 10 is more immediate pop up little things, whereas 6 is like, I have an ongoing issue with this, and you're working on it, and having to really work on it. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I do it every morning through prayer.
Yeah.
I mean, specifically asked to have, God remove, well, we're not there, but to remove the defects of character.
Yeah, we're there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
we made it there.
Yeah. Well,
Jill's point, we're going back. We talked about kind of us guys and gals in the program that have actually worked all 12, right? But if there's a listener out there that hasn't worked all 12, this first step 6 is coming from your 4 and 5.
right.
Right.
Yeah. And which brings me to, like, what is a defect of character?
Yes.
And you're probably headed that direction, right?
Well, I think it'd be important for them to understand defects of character whenever we get into this thing, because like a lot of folks, like I just said, we get it from 4 and 5. Yes, we get it from 4 and 5, but I still thought that my only defect of character was I drank.
Right. I didn't know exactly what that meant. I mean, a defect of character. And I knew that I had worked, looked at my part through when it came to fears and being dishonest and selfish and all that, but I didn't really know what a defect of character was. And it was that. And it can be a many, many, many different things. I once had a handout that I'd give my clients with hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. And over time, through working the steps multiple times and working on myself, I was able to identify my main defect of character, the one that fueled my alcoholism, the one that almost killed me. And, but like I said, there's so many. And once you really start to work on yourself and you find those, it's just, there it is. You're at step 6 and you're like, hey, I'm ready to have this. This needs to go. It's not working for me.
Yeah.
Because I like to think as a defect of character or character defect as a behavior that keeps you from what your true self. It may be a mask something you're trying to hide. It's some kind of behavior that does not work for you, that keeps you from your full potential, self,
Peace.
God, all those
Peace of mind.
all the good things.
Sure.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And the 12 and 12 actually has more other names for defects of character as well, and we'll get into those in a little bit. But index of malfunctions or index of I'll find it in a second. But there's a, call it what you want to call it, right? But it's so important to have a sponsor, because when you don't think you have a character,
Oh my gosh, it's good to point it out, huh?
yeah. Or you can remarry your ex-wife and she'll help you out with that. But I'm thinking, when I got here, I was just no character defects, none, right? I took step 4 and 5, and I slowly started realizing through my part, I guess some folks call it that fourth column, but my character defects, and just a couple of examples, is jealousy. Is an example of character defects. Not one of my personal character defects, but it is something you might discover whenever you're doing this. And it may be something that once we get to step 7, which will be a few episodes from now, that we actually want to recognize, and start changing and start making changes, because changes just don't happen overnight. You know. So step 6 in the 12 and 12, though, I'm going to read this real quick. I'm not going to bore y'all with all my reading today, but the very first paragraph says, and this is the book writing. This is not me. You can interpret it any way you want to interpret it. We don't go into the politics of it. I'm reading out of a book, right? This is the step that separates the men from the boys. So declares a well-loved clergyman who happens to be one of AA's greatest friends. He goes on to explain that any person capable of enough willingness and honesty to try repeatedly step 6 on all his faults without any reservations, whatever, has indeed come a long way spiritually, and is therefore entitled to be called a man who is sincerely trying to grow in the image and likeness of his own Creator. And you can fill in any gender in that you want. That's depending on how you read, but that's how this actual book reads. And, so I think character defect will be, the first thing that we discuss, and Jill did a great job of it over there talking about that. What's your take on character defect? Now, we don't need to know yours, Matt. We all know those.
Oh, I also have an ex-wife. If anybody needs to know, I can give you her number. She can tell you all mine. But, character defects, I just pulled up, like you were reading, and I've read 9 right off the bat. I pretty much have had all of those. So,
yeah.
I'm not going to keep going. It kind of depresses me a little bit. But I was hoping maybe one I didn't have. But, and really, me personally, it was dishonesty, ego, fear, resentment, justifying things, self-pity, all those good things. And talking about asking God to remove them in this step, and I'll give you one that I just know with me is, I don't know that I know he hasn't removed it, but like self-pity, that's when I know I'm sort of not right. As I hear that in my head, well, poor me, poor me, everybody's out to get me. No,
that's my go-to as well.
And it's like when I start hearing that, I go, ooh. And I don't know that. And I'm just saying, this is me. Okay, I'm not an expert on anything, even my own junk. But when I start hearing that, I think that's God's way of going, hey, you're not right, And I almost, it's like a switch, and it goes, hey, you need to deal with something here. And so I'm glad that it's there when I hear that, because I don't let it go long, anymore.
I'm the same way. It's like the get your ass in gear switch.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, God's pretty smart. He may have just left that there for me to go,
Well, we got to think about it. At this point, if we've made it to step 6, there has to be, most likely, I would hope anyway, and this is on my own personal experience, nobody else's, but there may be, God removed the obsession to drink, which was pretty amazing.
Right.
Like
Weird.
I'm thinking if he can remove the obsession to drink, this is an open door to,
sure.
This where we tapped into that higher power or whatever it is, that we call it. And there's a possibility he may actually do this. Might want to think twice about what character defects I want removed.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. What will I be? So I personally, whenever I work with the guys, I make a list. Make a list of character defects, and actually I do that the very first thing they do on the whenever we start their steps 4 is I have them have a page that says flaws in my makeup, and then we turn over and start the actual step 4, so that after we're done, we can go back to the very first page called flaws in our makeup and write down the flaws in our makeup. Makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And flaws in our makeup is not the facial makeup, Ben, just so you know. It's
Oh, I thought you were trying to talk about me there for a second.
No, I'm sorry.
And you know, most of mine too, I feel like almost all of them, really, when you cut it down to it, is based out of fear.
Oh yeah,
Almost
that's
99% of them.
with pretty much any negative
Oh, yeah.
aspect. Fear is a core component.
And we learn that too in step 4. You know, notice how the word fear is bracketed beside, it's just what they say, fear ought to be classified with stealing. It seems to cause more problems. So, yeah. So, how do you do step 6? What did you do, Ben? I'm sorry, Ben. What did you do on your step 6? Do you remember?
Yeah. Cal told me to meet him out in the park, and then he said, "Okay." Oh yeah, I'm not talking into the mic.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, Cal told me to meet him in a park, and we got there, and he said, "Okay, I want you to reread. I want you to sit there, reread through your step 4, and then think about it and think if you've left anything off." And he let me sit there, and I read through it, and I pondered on it, and I thought about it a lot, and I didn't find anything that I left out of it. And then after that, he said, "Okay, I want you to sit here and pray about it." And we prayed about it for a while, and after that, it was just on the 7.
Yeah. Pretty solid. Unless you have something you just absolutely refuse to let go of. It's a pretty simple step. Mm-hmm. I actually had to make it more complicated than it was.
Mine was pretty easy. That I recall, my sponsor sent me home and told me to kind of go home, kind of find a quiet spot, relax for an hour, and just kind of think about, what I just did in step 5 and if I left anything out. And at that point, I think I'd been focusing so much on my defects of character that they were just so loud. I mean, they were all magnified. There was so much of that going on in my head that I was just freaked out. And at that point, I was like, I am more than willing to get rid of this stuff, because I felt like I was going crazy at that point. Focusing and putting all my energy into the defects of character and realizing, like, this is what I've been doing for so long. This is what it's weird. You think you're this like caring, wonderful person, and it's just like that whole thing gets obliterated. You're like, you're a selfish asshole, full of fear and selfishness and all of that. And so it kind of rocks your world. But I did. I sat there for an hour and really thought about that. And I was, like I said, like, let's get rid of this. I don't want this. Did I trust that yet? No, because I was still new to this whole higher power thing. I was still new to this prayer thing. And it's just something like, again, with the steps multiple times before, it was just a leap of faith. Let's see what happens. Yeah. And that stuff, like, it worked. It worked. Fear used to be one of my more complex defects of character. I lived in fear for a long time, and it was bad. It wasn't just fear, it was fight or flight. I was in constant fight or flight. I was having severe panic attacks on a daily basis, in and out of psych wards, and heavily sedated on benzos through that whole entire time. And so I was just running, and fear controlled me. It paralyzed me. And it was so awesome is that I haven't had a panic attack since I've gotten sober. And that's one of my biggest miracles, is that defect of character, fear, to the point of the crippling, panic and all, is just totally disappeared out of my life. And it doesn't mean like I'm cured from fear. I still have fear. They're mostly healthy fears these days. But if I get into that, get into fear, it's like, okay, I'm not trusting God here. Mm-hmm. which, leads me to do what I need to do. Talk to my sponsor, surrender, pray more, do like, we've been taught. Do the deal. Take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, if you think about it, everything goes back to fear.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not. Yeah, everything.
Pretty much.
If I can pretty much think, if I can gather some knowledge in the program of AA, obviously I need meetings no matter what. I had to search out one the other day because I hadn't been to a meeting in like 10 days, and there wasn't any fear there. There was a know better. You know better. You better go find one. I don't care if you got to drive 3 hours to get you one. You need to go get one. But fear and acceptance, both of those two words are crucial to my recovery. I can't speak for anybody else's recovery, but if I can put two words that really mean a lot, and there's willingness, there's honesty, there's all these words, I get it. But fear, because sometimes if I think about it, why did I lash out, right? Well, because there's some kind of fear going on with me. And I got something going on, and it's me. It's fear. It's just all about fear. Fear of losing something I have or not getting something I want.
And what is fear a result of, in my life, lack of faith?
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, because the opposite
So I'm not right if
the
I'm
opposite
scared
of
of
fear is trust.
Yeah. Yeah. That I don't trust the process. I don't trust my higher power. I don't trust this program. I don't trust the things that I've done to continue to go the way they're going. So when I'm pulling back and when I'm in that's what that is. I'm somehow not right spiritually. So.
But did we get this fear overnight? Did we get it over time?
No.
Did this develop?
Yes.
Is it no or yes, Julie? Did we get it as a result of something that happened growing up? Where did this come from?
I think it stems from your environment. It can stem from families. It can be generational, just stem. I mean, it's everywhere. It's in movies. It is learned. It is.
Well, let's talk about this just a little bit. So I was talking to somebody the other day. We were having a conversation, and I just made a comment, about, I'm going to call it childhood trauma, but
Yeah.
it's not. So if you're out there and you suffer childhood trauma, I am not making light of yours, right? This is just kind of the way me and this person were having this conversation, and this is how it came to be, But I have siblings, and my siblings are 7 years younger than me, right? I have two sisters. Both of them are the same age. They're both 43 years old. And there were some serious resentments and serious arguments and family feuds based on the toy in the cereal box.
Yep.
I mean, that
Kill a guy at my house when my brother's over.
I mean, Mom came home one time and she had this container.
Pulled at my house.
And I was like, what's the container for? She's like, well, we're going to pour the cereal in there. And I'm like, who's getting the toy? And it just, because, I mean, these toys are.
Oh.
But the reason I said all that is just because there are little things like that happened as a child that shaped me as an adult. It kind of, you get that resentment. They're going to get something I don't have. The toy was like a Fred Flintstone eraser in a Fruity Pebbles, right?
This is pre-internet, guys. For anybody out there listening, we
might have young listeners. I don't even know if they still put toys in the cereal.
I have no idea.
I don't either.
I don't know. I don't think they do.
Hadn't eaten cereal, and I don't know.
They
how
probably
long.
didn't, as a result of some
the 80s,
psychiatrists
just-
writing in and saying you guys are causing.
Or people would eat the toy back in the 80s, and die. So that's
yeah.
probably why they don't.
Well,
They don't put the baby in the king cake anymore.
No,
So,
really?
They don't.
Yeah.
No, you got to put it in yourself if you want to.
Yep.
Choking hazard, probably. So, but the reason I said that was because it was little things like that growing up that kind of shaped my mentality, right? And I guess it just over the course, especially while your brain's still growing, and I think our brains continue to grow up until like age 26.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
something like that.
25, 26, ain't it?
And how old have you been?
30.
Okay, so you're in good shape. Just want to make sure your brain.
No, I think I was stunted like 90% of that time.
Well, most of us were.
Right.
But while your brain's still growing, I developed these feelings of resentment towards my sisters over a cereal box, or But I take those into adulthood. They just come in bigger forms. They go from being very simple, like something like that, into these huge things. Like, I don't know, taking away the McRib, when McDonald's takes away the McRib and brings it back and takes it away and brings it back. I mean, what am I supposed to do?
How's a man, survive out there?
Well, there's so many factors in how we're raised. When it,
Right.
I mean, it goes into like abuse and adverse, childhood experiences, abandonment. I mean,
we had Megan Al-Anon person on the other day. We had this
Yes.
discussion the other day, her and I. Trauma is relative. Mike fighting, I'm going to use this example, Mike duking it out. And you did have to fight two people, basically, if they were 43. So that's kind of fair. It was a 2-on-1.
Well, they weren't 43 at the time.
Well, but fighting over a toy in a cereal box may be traumatic to somebody, but you turn around and this is what you get working with people and going to, for me, I go sit in treatment centers. I was in one last night, and then you start to hear what I consider traumatic in quotations in my background. And then I hear somebody has something way worse.
Yeah.
But each person, that may be a huge deal to them, and it may have started down that road. And you can't belittle or discount. Oh, well, it was a toy in a cereal box. Well, because this person was abused or whatever. It's no comparison there. Everybody's on their own.
you're right with
thing,
that. And I think that especially as children, we're not necessarily taught the right coping skills to get through those kind of things. And it just creates a void of sorts.
And I tried that crap when I did steps with my my sponsor and going through resentments and things like that. And I tried all that, my parents thing, but he straightened that out real fast. It took about 5 minutes to undo 40 years.
Well, that's kind of.
I'm serious.
I was going there because I'm not trying to encourage anybody to get there in front of your sponsor and start blaming siblings and parents. Where I was going with that was because obviously there was much more traumatic things that happened in my childhood. I'm just kind of getting in there what shapes my personality, to where whenever I'm an adult, I have these character defects, right? There's things that shape them. Obviously, some major trauma is going to shape them. There's small trauma, like it's, or not even trauma, just episodes. I can remember a time where my grandfather spanked me, okay? And it was just a spanking. Hand, blue jeans, back in the 80s, perfectly normal, right? Mm-hmm.
Were they lead jeans? Jordache?
They're probably husky, to be honest with you. But we're not going to go there. But to be, perfectly honest, out of I'm 50 years old. My grandfather's, I want to say 93. But out of our whole lives, that's the only time he's ever spanked me, right? And it isn't even the spanking that I think about. It was what I did to create that happening, right? So there was something going on back then, and if I didn't course correct due to that, then it's going to turn into something much bigger. The problem with that is, whenever I course correct, I only course correct that action with my grandfather. Mm-hmm. I may still do that with everybody else, but I know I don't go there, right, with him. So character defects, for me anyway, all of that, just talking about character defects, because I don't want to overindulge on it, because it really doesn't matter where they come from.
Right.
We got them.
Yep.
We got them.
Yeah, we do.
And it has caused problems with our relationships with other human beings. Now, we go through the step 4, we go through step 5, and we admit all of those things that we find objectionable about our character. Somewhere in there, we talk about it, or even if it's fear, right? But we talk about it with that sponsor. Now, we have a list it could be, mine are always written down, but it could be non-written. It could just be in your head. It could be typed into something. But we have a list of character defects. Now, are we entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character? Are we? That is so this is where my dilemma, because we're really a show about experience, right? We don't really give advice. We don't give suggestions, really, even, so hopefully some sober listeners out there can relate, and maybe some newcomers can pick it up and go, that's pretty cool. I like that, but I remember doing my fifth step, and Dale told me I was at the Koala Club, and I lived down the road from the Koala Club, and Dale told me, go home and sit there in your apartment for an hour and think about it, and have you left anything out? And if you have, like the whole story. And my drive from the Koala Club to my apartment, I think I had a truck back then. My drive, though, I started thinking about these character defects. And this was like the first time I really thought about them. Like, I had a mental picture of, these character defects. And I wasn't quite sure I was ready to let go of some of them. I just wasn't. I mean...
Well, you're so used to them.
Well,
like, what am I going to do without this?
Comfort.
I really I like some of them. And to me, it's what made me such a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at, man, I hate to give up this. I hate to give up that.
Especially when it comes to pride.
Yeah. But think
that
about
makes
this.
Me.
We came to believe in a power greater than ourselves. We turn our will and our life over to this power. But we're not quite sure if we want him to shape and mold our personalities in a way he sees fit.
Turn our will and our life over, but I'm going to kind of show you how I want this shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's where the dilemma about the character defects, and it even says, it could be 12 and 12. It's not the big book. Well, maybe it is a big book, but it even says if we have character defects we don't think we want to let go of, we ask God that we become willing, but never say never. We never say, I'm not going to let that go. I'm not going to let that go. This isn't quite like an amends list where we have the nevers, maybes, and today kind of thing. This is if these are character defects, and I was so positive, though, I will say that I had the faith that God was going to take these away. And I love it in the 12 and 12. It says, if we ask, God will certainly forgive our declarations, but in no case does he render us white as snow and keep us that way without our cooperation. Now, think about that. So there's some action we got to take.
Right.
What y'all think?
Absolutely.
And I remember,
for sure,
I remember backtracking just a second on praying about this after doing this step. And the whole thought, the whole time I sat for that hour was, if all these get removed, what's left? What's left? I didn't know what was left.
Clean slate.
Yeah, but what's in the slate? That was my thought. What kind of slate are we
what
working
is it
with?
Then? Nothing?
Who's here? Hello.
I like you said that. What kind of slate are we working with? Because it ain't we anymore. It's God.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was a fear right in itself of going, well, I it's kind of like keeping your enemies close. I mean, I knew these things, but if you remove those things, then I don't know what else is in there. So, yeah, that's where I was at with it. That's all I remember thinking was, this is going to be weird.
And it is.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, who you are is not who you are. So who am I?
But are we real? Man, this is going to sound. Are we
what we
really?
think.
Are we really who we are?
And
No, I get, yeah, you're exactly.
I don't think when you're on the path that we were on.
Problem I had with all of it, from the beginning until now, is that I've always wanted to be what other people wanted me to be.
And probably thought you lived up to that.
Yeah, and it's like I always wanted to be loved and needed by everybody, and I would do anything that I thought they needed me to be, rather than just be me, rather than just do what feels natural and comes natural to me.
Yeah.
And I guess now that's that may be a slight problem because I send too many Instagram reels to people. But
Well, let
I'm
me
working on
ask you
that.
this: if a character defect, Ben, is let's say people pleasing, right? And then you no longer you want that, you are willing to have that removed. Well, obviously, it's causing you some sort of pain.
Yeah.
There's some kind of problem in there. Maybe because if you try to please everybody, some people are not going to like you.
And that's the ones I focused on most. Is
Right.
as soon as somebody shows any, like, they're in my life enough or whatever, and I feel comfortable around them or whatever, it's the ones that I don't feel comfortable around that I show out, that I
Right.
try and do whatever I can to gain that. And that's one thing I have to learn to step back and try not to
So
feed into so much.
Let me ask you that because I like that you gave a specific character defect. Let's just say you had enough pain, you wanted this character defect removed, right? And you asked God to remove it. And I know we're getting into step 7, and that's okay. It's okay if we bleed over. It's no big deal. But let's just say you get into step 7, you ask God to remove that character defect. What now? What do you do?
My biggest thing is just trying to stay aware of what I just asked for, and trying when I go into any situation, just trying to remember that as best as I can, because I do have a problem with ADHD and object permanence. If I leave something alone if something's out of my direct contact for too long, I forget about it, and I have to keep on top of things for yes.
Not to let you regress. Yeah, like if I relax, excuse me, I'll revert back to, and I say relax if I'm not focused on the positive things that I'm
Resting on your laurels.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
I don't know about any of y'all listening or any of you guys, but I have 2 gears, forward or back. I have no neutral. So I'm incapable of neutral. I just don't have it. I can't just sit in a still place in my life. So I'm either working on it or I'm falling back from it. One of the two.
Right.
So it's a constant I want to say battle, but that's not even a good word. It's just working
struggle.
on stuff.
Struggle.
Yeah. So
Well, I think for me, the way this worked was, I did my 4 and 5. I got my character defects. I kind of had a really good idea of what they were. Discussed them, obviously, with some adult supervision, had my sponsor. And whenever I actually went through with step 7, and I didn't name them all. Some people do. I get, hey, that's it. There's a 7-step prayer. That's what I used. God, take all my character defects, right? And when I got up from doing that, my character defects were not gone. But the one thing that I can say, and this is an attaboy for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, was my character defects were glaring at that point.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, horrifically.
Like, I've acknowledged them. I've thought about them. I've talked to God about them. How am I going to forget about them as soon as I do it? You know what I mean? So it gives me a chance to work opposite of myself.
The way I like to look at it is not to forget about them, but to not practice them anymore.
Yeah. And I think what those steps is what it's about. It's awareness. It's the identification. It is the, all right, time to go.
Yeah. And do something, make that change. And even if it's just maybe work on one at a time, maybe if it's, say honesty is a character defect that you have. Well, maybe just don't be dishonest today, and if you are, make amends for it right then. Telling someone, hey, I just lied, that's kind of tough. You don't want to do that crap all over and over and over all day long.
Right. I mean, it's a practice.
But think about it. Is that the way God removes them? By you practicing?
Absolutely.
That's how
That's how it works
it's not
for
a
me.
magic wand.
Right.
It's not for
And
me.
just poof gone.
Yeah, it's not that. I mean, what's the learning in that, or the, it's when you have to go humbly go to somebody and go, okay, yeah, I just lied to your face. You don't want to do that's what Mike said. You don't want to do that all the time. Okay. You're going to clean that up. If you don't, I don't know what to do. But,
and that goes back to the 12 and 12, at taking the best possible attitude you can towards changing your life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just, it's a progress.
Yeah, it's work. This whole program is nothing but action.
Yeah.
There are things you can do, and you're going to get better if you put the action in. So, yeah, I don't know. I work on a lot of them. Some of them are way better than others. Some of them are just always around, and they're close by.
Well,
Right.
and we're discussing 6 and 7. Okay. So let's talk about just a minute about step 7. Let's talk about step 7 for a minute. We'll just jump over we'll take that leap for a second. Step 7, because you said they're always around. Well, it deals with humility, right? That's the main thing, is it deals with humility. So let's think about this. I am now asking God to remove the defects of character that stand in the way of me, him, and my fellows. Not me, but just him and my fellows, right? And I'm going to tell him what character defects to remove? Well, that's not how the game is played. Not that this is a game. It's deadly serious business, but the truth is that's not how the steps work. God removes, for me, He removes the defects He wants gone.
Right.
So if I think about that before taking step 6 and before taking step 7, if this character defect is actually an asset, He's not going to remove it. He's not going to remove it.
Well, and it's kind of like, even throughout the years, you learn more and more about yourself. What I was ready to see when I was newly sober, it was something I wasn't ready to see. And maybe years later, I was like, whoa, okay, here comes a new one, and I'm more aware of it now. I mean, that's what happens in recovery.
Oh, whack-a-mole.
The old whack-a-mole.
The old
yes.
whack-a-mole.
Was
Was you going to say something, Ben?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm astonished by this beautiful view I have right here.
Well,
Ben,
That's what I've been doing this whole time. Is when I'm not speaking, I'm just
that's
staring out the
Matt.
window.
You've seen him before.
Oh, I was about to say Mike.
I did go to the barber shop yesterday. I mean, I'm looking good.
Are you talking about all the equipment?
Is that a character
Yeah, kind of,
defect? I'm looking good.
Kind of, yeah. It's a child. It's taking me back to my grandmother's house when I was younger. So,
And I'm glad you said that though, because
a lot of stuff went down at Grandma's house when we were younger.
Yeah, that's
To shape our futures.
But talking about God using things, just last night, go to a treatment center, end up talking to a couple guys after the meeting. Me having those defects, some of that stuff, God is able to use. And so it's a fine line between people pleaser and being friendly with people and being open to talking to them and visiting with them and being approachable versus that, it's like a seesaw almost, because there is a benefit that can be used for some of that stuff.
I got one that I can share about you, Matt.
I don't know if we want to do that on the internet.
Well,
I'm
it's
kidding.
it's good. It's good. It's you have a character defect. Like if you wanted to, you could just tell somebody how you feel about them and try and put them in their place. And you've shared a couple of times where somebody was going off and wrongly going off on somebody that was doing the best that they could. And in my personal opinion, I feel that the way you address those couple situations that you've talked about, you did it right, and it was just in the way that you did it. So, not all the time,
Yeah.
but sometimes being able to speak your mind is
Meaning instead of taking a baseball bat to a place, approaching it. Yeah. Well, that's a work in progress.
Well, with any defect of character, we can use that to our detriment, and we can harm people, we can harm ourselves, and we can just be ugly people. But there's also the opposite, which is we can use it for motivation. Every single one of them, to get better and to never be that way, and to teach other people that you don't have to either.
And to go back to the conversation last night I had with these guys, and they were talking about some stuff. For me to have that same character defect and have been dealing with it sober and clean for 5 years, they're a week sober and clean, and they're going, "Oh my God," and they're freaking out. And I'm like, "Hey, bro, it kind of calms them down, because I go, there's a process. I deal with it too. I still deal with it. So it will get better." But you're able to help somebody else, and they're thinking of the fear of, I'm going to have to deal with how and so God does use that, and I think that's awesome. And,
Yeah. Character assets. I mean, we may think it's a defect. It's none of our business.
Right.
It is. That's God's deal there. He gets to remove and not remove. So, if I could think back about anything going back through all of or through my years of recovery, is I'm driving home after doing step 5, and I'm thinking about the character defects I don't want removed. Well, one, that's selfish. And 2, that isn't even something I even had to think about. I'm kind of glad that I was even thinking about the program of AA. It means I'm taking it serious at this point, right? But I was actually in fear about the character defects that may or may not be removed. And the truth is, it's not even up to me. It has absolutely nothing to me what God removes and doesn't remove. The character defects that I know I need to work on, I'm going to know I need to work on them. I mean, it's just pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, and then so we go back to step 7, and now that we're talking about step 7, and so let's just say we got our character defects. We've thought about it. We're pretty sure this is what's been standing in the way of me. And why do I always say me? This is what's been standing in the way of my fellows and God and everybody out there, and causing problems in my relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship or whether it's just a friend or even a child, just relationships, period. But I've got all this in my head, and I'm thinking about it. What do I do? According to the big book, when ready, that means we have became entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. It says, when ready, we say something like this: My Creator, I'm not. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen.
Love it.
Yeah.
Say it every day.
Do you really?
Yes, I do.
Wow. Jill works a step 7 every day.
I believe that.
I would too.
That's a good prayer to wake up to in the morning.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
I usually wake up and just go, "Oh God." Even sober, I don't know what that says about me.
Well, maybe now you can follow it up with that.
And once you get to be
Yeah.
my age, Matt, you wake up.
He's used to my shenanigans. Okay, it's an odd relationship, but
Y'all wake up together?
Sometimes.
not that
Mostly
guy.
on the weekends.
He's really used to my shenanigans, but
Well, I mean, so that's what we do with this. That's what we. It's pretty simple, right? We say that prayer and let God do what God does, and we do, right? What God's will supposedly is, and then we do what's right. And by doing what's right, we start working on. I should say we, but I do. I start working on those character defects.
And just to throw in, Jill, your prayer, but pretty much anything in this program for me goes back to the serenity prayer.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what do I have control over? Very little.
Well, I had that conversation with somebody today.
I mean, it's pretty much covers everything. I mean, I can't think of anything it doesn't cover in a short little paragraph, in a broad way of looking at it. And that's, we do what we are able to do or capable of doing, and God's going to take care of the rest of it. So
That's right.
just let it go. So
Now, can we do that?
We try.
we tried. That's a good answer, Jill.
The reason I bring that up is another, common thing that happens in AA that I hear, especially with newcomers, and not to discourage a newcomer, right? But I give it to God and I take it back. I give it to God and I take it
Oh,
back.
the old tug of war.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
give it to God and I take it back. Jill, you've been sober 13 years.
Yeah.
Do you give it to God and take it back?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I catch myself a hell of a lot quicker though these days.
Yeah. Me too.
I hope too that people that are listening to this, and Mike's brainstorm for this deal was, new people looking at the program, trying to get help. I think what you can hear from everybody in this room, if you listen to this constantly or listen to this show, is it is a constant work in progress, and it gets better, but things don't just evaporate and go away, and you're like a new toy that comes out of a wrapper.
Right.
It's a progress to work your way back from what you did, and as time goes on, if you put the effort in, yes, it gets a lot better. Am I 5 years later? I'm miles and miles ahead of where I was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But I have miles and miles to go. So, but I'm excited about it because I've seen progress, and I've grown more in the last 2 years than I did in the first 3. Mm-hmm. Like it's just flying now.
And I like the way you said that because you haven't rested on your laurels. You grow when you go, when you keep going, when you keep moving, when you keep sacrifice, hard work, whatever it takes, right? For that newcomer and for that new person. So that's you. Of course, you've grown more in the past couple.
And we talked about this last night. Make mistakes. I have guys in a business, and there's 2 types of mistakes in my business. The lazy mistake, where we're just not going to do anything. We're going to let somebody else worry about it. It ain't my job. And then we have aggressive mistakes where they're trying to get the job done. They go, hey, I'm thinking, let me try this. It doesn't work. I don't get mad most of the time about aggressive mistakes because I know where the heart's at on it. Well, in recovery, you're going to make mistakes too, but get in there and go to work. Try to do some things. And if you're doing it the right way and you have a sponsor, you can go, hey, this isn't working. Let's back up and try this,
So we've mentioned the word or the phrase "resting on our laurels" quite a bit today, and I didn't know what the hell that meant. So the definition is to be satisfied with past success and do nothing to achieve further success.
There you go. I have arrived.
Yeah, this
Resting on your
is
laurels.
ongoing. Mm-hmm. This is ongoing. Sure. I mean, it has a lot to do with complacency and we can't afford that.
That's exactly what I did for the first 5-6 months of getting sober or getting dry.
You were just happy with going to meetings?
No, I wasn't even going to meetings. I went to like 2 meetings and I quit drinking and just went to work and went home and nothing got better. Matter of fact, shit got worse. And it was shit getting worse that woke me up, and I'm glad every day that happened the way it did. But once I started taking action in this program is when things started getting better, and it was small things at first, but it led into big things. So
same here.
And get used to being uncomfortable in sobriety.
Oh, yeah.
The uncomfortable stuff is where you grow.
Yep.
So whatever that might be, you come in and you sit with your head down in a meeting for 6 months and you don't say a word to anybody. The uncomfortable can be getting up and like walking over and shaking somebody's hand and going, hey, I'm so-and-so. Get over that fear of that. Keep pushing to broaden what you're doing in whatever steps that might be. And the more I've been uncomfortable, the faster I've grown. So yeah. I almost like the uncomfortable now because I know once I've done it once, then I'm cooking then, you know, and so.
And to your point, there is a level of humility that goes with the doing the uncomfortable.
Sure.
Absolutely.
There's a level of unselfishness that goes with doing the uncomfortable, right? So we talked about the previous episodes leading into this, which is, one of the reasons why I really wanted to do those two before we talked about step 6, right? Because the level of humility, step 6 and 7 really is what we've discussed in this episode, if we're just being honest. But the level of humility, so if I am humble enough to say my life has not worked out with these defects, whether I like them or not, I need God to remove them if there's going to be any change. Is there a chance I could get up and be a totally different person? Well, I sure as hell hope so. Because I was not the person I thought I was when I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Looking back, if he'd have removed them all at once, I probably wouldn't have came back.
Right.
I'm good. Thank
perfect.
y'all. Appreciate it, guys. I've more so, this is a way of living. So it's changed my way of living over the past 12 years. It's not really, it's made me better. The most important thing is I haven't drank, which is the whole purpose. I went in because of all this. The byproduct of working the 12 steps for me was not drinking. That's just a byproduct, right? The actual product was having a better life, so to speak,
Cleaning up that mat problem I had.
Yeah.
Working on that one.
Right. Well, and I think, gosh, when I came in, I thought, I'm just here to stop drinking. I had no idea that there was more to this program. And it's all the stuff that we're talking about. I never thought any of this would be something I would work on.
And getting back to that too, I hate to keep bringing up last night, but those are my favorite meetings, the treatment center meetings, and I feel like most of the time I have about a month of sobriety anyway, so I'm good with that's my people in there. But this deal, when you're talking about removing defects of character and identifying them and working on them, there's a way to look at people in this program and go, I look at people and I go, they have a program, and it doesn't necessarily mean how long they've been sober, but a lot of times it does translate, because the longer they go, the more you can tell that Mike and Jill, great example. Y'all have been doing this a lot longer than I have. When I hear y'all going, yeah, I still work on this or I work on that, then I'm sitting here going, okay, well then this is a journey, When I talk to Joe B or Phil and they're 40 years, and I go, oh, okay, so they're still working
same
on
when
this.
I talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, we all do that, and that's what this program does. And that's what we discussed last night. I told those two guys, I said, this is not a magic wand deal. If it was, everybody would do it instantly. The world would be a perfect place, but it's not, and it takes work. And so get around people that are doing this and identify who's actually working a program and doing the things that are suggested to do, Well,
I think we have about run out of time, and this has been a really good one. It's funny. I told you guys, I had like 10 days. I didn't go to a meeting, and that's rare for me to go that long without a meeting. So I searched one out, whenever I just recently moved to a town called Burleson, Texas, just outside of Dallas. And I searched out a meeting, and the meeting was 6 minutes from my apartment. 6 minutes. That's how long it took me to get there. Like, I jumped in, hit the thing, boom, 6 minutes later, I'm in this meeting. And small meeting. It was on, I want to say Thursday. Might have been Wednesday, but it was on Thursday or Wednesday. Small meeting, and the topic of conversation was it's a closed meeting. I think that might be the first closed meeting I've ever been to.
Oh.
But it was a closed meeting of AA, and it didn't. I really.
That's old school.
Yeah, but
I like them.
A lot of newcomers. Like 15 people there, and probably 13 or 12 were newcomers. But the topic was higher power, right? Talking about finding that higher power and what, relying on that higher power was the one that got me. And that talking about 6 and 7, it says, if that degree of humility could enable us to find the grace by which such a deadly obsession could be banished, then there must be hope of the same result respecting other problems we could possibly have. Character defects or whatever problem comes along, that reliance on a higher power is, for me, very important, especially on times like my recent move when I had to go days without a meeting, or I went days, I didn't have to go. I went days without a meeting. So anyway, shout out to, who we going to shout out to today, Matt?
Let's see. I have gotten some text. I think you did too, for some people. Dickie sent us some stuff on some people listening, new people listening to the deal. That was really nice, and that's kind of why we do this. So,
do you still have the text? We can read it.
I do have it. Let's see here. Give me just a second.
And I'm going to send a shout out. I got a text yesterday, and I don't have it on me, but it was from one of our listeners that I didn't know really listened. Her name is, I knew she listened, but I hadn't heard from her. Her name is Bree. She is in the Covington, Mandeville, Madisonville area. She's from down there. And, of course, I hear from Amy C. quite regularly on Instagram, and she's the one that left us the one voicemail we've gotten so far, but still listening to the show.
Okay, so I got the text from Dickie. She said, hey, so a while back, excuse me, I sent the podcast we did to my cousin who sent it to her son, who is one of us and lost his 3 beautiful babies. He texted me today and said he has been sober for a few months now, and that podcast changed his life. And I said, that's cool. Then it's all, all this has been worth it. That's why we're doing it. So that's pretty awesome to hear. And
very awesome.
Yeah, agree.
And
keep coming back.
Keep coming. Yeah, we need all the listeners we can get. We I think Miss Faye still listens, and Michelle still listens. Rhonda still listens. Kim still listens. We Larry and Judy got married. So
yes,
excellent.
I think they have to listen together now as part of the laws of they got married in Florida. So I can honestly say it's one of the states I've gotten married in before. So I'm pretty happy for them. I got some videos of some airboat rides, and
I was thinking, man,
Bridezilla I think comes to mind. I didn't say that. That was in one of the messages I got. Hopefully it was from Judy.
You have talked about your marriages, but I've been the best man at one of my friends' weddings 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I guess
He's
I
the
work
common
cheap.
denominator.
if I work cheap or what?
You.
The third one, I said, "Bud, I'm bad luck. Next one's you're gonna have to find somebody else."
And we need to shout out to Dickie because obviously she listens, and if she doesn't listen, she sends it off to people.
Dickie's awesome, and
I know Chris C still listens.
Yes, he does. And but Dickie has a new job in the treatment field, and she's fired up about that, and should be, and she's going to do great at that. So I don't think we got any new countries. Matter of fact, if you're one of these countries that I'm about to name off and you border another country, can you run across the border right quick and just log into our, so we'll have an additional country on there. So we got the United States, which is everyone we just named basically is in the States, the United Kingdom, Taiwan, that's Anne. Is that right?
Yeah.
In Taiwan. Yeah. Ireland. We got Bulgaria, Australia, Denmark, and Saudi Arabia. And it looks like the United Arab Emirates fell off. I don't know. Maybe whoever was in the UAE moved over to one of these. I hope moved over to one of these other countries.
Bulgaria.
Is that close to? No. I forgot my globe.
I skipped geography year.
Globe. Anyway, you can reach out to us at area code 985-377-4816. That's our voicemail. We're going to play it on the air. Oh, I forgot to shout out to Jane. Jane actually reminded me this week that I did not hit the publish button. And I'm driving down the road, and I got a text or an email, and I was like, oh, let me look. Boom. And I had to publish our episode. That's why it came out late, is because I just didn't, I thought I'd published it. So shame on me. So
I did, speaking of Mandeville, Covington, I did get a friend of mine from high school on Instagram. We have another friend that he's like me, and we'll put it that way. And we kind of got to talking this week about it, and I sent him a link to the podcast, and he said, well, our buddy probably ain't going to listen to it, but I am. So he's going to start listening.
Cool.
Speaking of buddies, Gideon reached out to me this week.
What did he say?
He said he listens to all our episodes.
He does. And I'm a better golfer than him, so he needs to know that. I mean, yeah.
I hope you're being serious, because I'll probably end up playing golf with him. Apparently he lives by me.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Dude, he can play. No, he can actually play.
And I probably won't end up playing golf. So one of you can fish and one of you can golf.
Yeah, I can outfish him. He can definitely out-golf me.
It's like a Mark Chestnut song right here.
Yes.
If you can outfish him, he must be terrible.
I mean,
they made him leave Bass Pro Shop 3 times for fishing.
Is he trying to fish in the Bass Pro's parking lot? Or
me and Bobby have probably fished in the Bass Pro.
All right. Voicemail 377-4816 and our email gandb Bossier, Bossier, at gmail.com. That's G and B, Bossier, at gmail.com. And Bossier spelled Bossier. Love to hear from you. Love to read your emails on the air. And thanks for everyone who's listening. Congratulations again to Larry and Judy. Signing off. This is the Garage and the Brainstorm.